All right, we got a little tangled up here. Let's try it. There we go. Okay, Keith Downey, you're on deck, and right now we have Bob Carney.
My website is Vote Bob Again, and I invite you to visit it. I'd like to start by talking a little bit about the heritage and the history of the Republican Party and the role of a governor in a Republican form of government. The modern Republican Party, of course, traces back to the Civil War, and the party was a party of union. We were the party that was trying to preserve the union. That was our number one priority. There were other states that were actually leaving the union and forming a confederacy. The fact is that we ended slavery because we realized that it was absolutely essential to continue the union, and that was our priority. When you go back and look further in history at the Constitutional Convention in 1787, we had a similar situation in one sense. We were a small country, a fragile country, certainly at risk of being taken over by European powers. And unfortunately, at that time, many people thought it was not possible to resolve the issue of slavery and abolish it throughout the country. So a very difficult decision was faced. Is our priority preserving and establishing a union? And the decision was made to do that. We delayed resolving the issue of slavery, and that's a tragedy. But the fact is, when you look at the preamble to the Constitution, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. You can't do those things and the other important priorities in the preamble if we don't have a union. And today, we're facing unprecedented division in this country. This is the biggest political problem that we have, and we have to deal with it. The Republican Party has to stay true to our commitment, above all, to preserve the union and to continue to form a more perfect union. Over decades and over centuries, we can solve any problem. We can overcome any obstacle. But we need to preserve the union, and that needs to be our priority today. In terms of the role of a governor in a Republican form of government, of course, it's a part of the executive branch. And the fundamental role of the governor is to have an efficient and effective administration carrying out the policies and the budget that is established by the legislature. The governor is not a third house of the legislature. The governor is not, as a constitutional role, intended to be another lever of power in a battle between partisan sides. When we go back and look at our history, we see that the founders constantly warned against the danger of faction. So in terms of the role of the governor, I think it's important to concentrate on the fact that we need unity, we need to work together, and that will be my priority in terms of approaching the office. Wrapping up, I need to address one other issue, and that is President Trump. We as Republicans collectively have a unique responsibility because we put him in the White House collectively, and as a party, the party is continuing to support him. I've written a book recently advancing a new constitutional theory on impeachment, and I've been studying this since 1999. The last 3 chapters of the book were actually written in 99 and 2000. And the nub of the theory is that in Article 2, we have these criminal grounds for impeachment. But the reality is that for most of the convention, impeachments were going to be done by the Supreme Court. And when you study the first 3 articles, you'll find that there are actually 2 trial venues for the criminal grounds in Article 2 for everybody except the President and Vice President. If somebody is impeached by the House and convicted by either the Senate or a criminal court, then removal from office is a requirement. That means that in Article 1, the provisions for the raw impeachment power of Congress are far more unlimited than we realize. The House has the sole power of impeachment. It doesn't say anything about who, when, or why. We can impeach someone for any reason as a kind of a constitutional safety valve if the circumstances are such that we need to do it. And as a nation, we need to, again, look at this question that our major problem, our biggest problem in the country today, is the fact that we are so divided. We need to start talking to each other to get out of our data silos and listening to each other and figuring out what we should do about this situation with President Trump. And the fact is that our constitutional choice is not between President Trump and a President Clinton. It is between President Trump, who is manifestly unqualified and dangerous, and a Vice President Pence, who is not. So I'm advocating the impeachment or resignation of Trump, and I'm planning to work on promoting this discussion of this. I will also make the book available periodically as a free download as Kindle because I am running and we want to be sure that everybody has access to this theory. I'm bobagain Carney Jr. and I'm asking for your vote for Governor of Minnesota. Thank you.